4 divers planned to dive into a cave in Guangxi, only to see the legendary and rare jellyfish with their own eyes. However, when the other 3 surfaced one after another, a female member of the team failed to return. By the time she surfaced again, she was already a cold diver's corpse. And this is what we are telling today, the Peach Blossom Jellyfish Cave Diving Tragedy. Peach Blossom Jellyfish Sinkhole is located in Dongmyo Village, Duan County, Guangxi, China. In June 2011, a team of special police from Nanning were conducting diving training at Jiazhu Sinkhole in Duan, when they unexpectedly discovered a rare freshwater jellyfish, the peach blossom jellyfish. This jellyfish is shaped like a peach blossom and is especially beautiful when appearing in swarms. Later, the place was renamed Peach Blossom Jellyfish Sinkhole, and it is only about 30 kilometers away from the Joduan Sinkhole we mentioned before. It is worth mentioning that Peach Blossom Jellyfish Sinkhole is not a single entity, but consists of 4 independent sinkholes. They are all distributed within a range of several hundred meters. On the surface, they look like just a few inconspicuous small ponds, but underwater, they are connected to each other through underground rivers. And the site of this accident is the second sinkhole. According to the profile drawn by Blue Flag Diving, this sinkhole is funnel-shaped as a hole, with uneven rock layers and a complex structure. The upper part consists mostly of eave-like crevices and branch caves. There is a sharp protrusion at 120 meters underwater, but the exact depth of the second sinkhole remains unknown. Combined with the crystal-clear water and the spectacular underwater karst landforms, the attraction and challenge for divers are undoubtedly immense. November 15, 2020, 5 members of a diving club from Nanning, Guangxi, arrived at the second sinkhole, hoping to catch a glimpse of the beauty of the peach blossom jellyfish. According to the plan, 1 person remained on shore for support, while the other 4 were divided into 2 groups to dive in pairs. Despite following the buddy system, tragedy still struck. At 12:05 p.m., the 4 divers entered the water one by one. During the process, they dove to a maximum depth of about 30 meters. 20 minutes later, 2 of the members surfaced, only to find that the other 2 companions had not come ashore. Realizing something was wrong, they entered the water again to search, but they only found one of the companions. By 1 p.m., after all 3 divers had returned to shore, it was finally confirmed that a female diver from Chongqing was missing. At 1:40 p.m., the accompanying personnel reported to the police. Subsequently, the Blue Flag Diving Club, which was also in Duan, began operations immediately. The rescue was led by Li Sudong, a top expert in the industry. He is the mentor of Han Ting, and everyone in the community respectfully calls him Dong Sir. Since there are branch caves and air chambers inside the sinkhole, it meant there was still a possibility that the missing diver was alive. So on the night of the 15th, Dong Sir and Aguai immediately launched a search and rescue, but they found nothing. The next day, Han Ting, who was out of town, also flew back to Guangxi to join the search. At the same time, a subsequent search plan was formulated. First, divers were responsible for a carpet search of the upper part of the sinkhole, including all branch caves. Meanwhile, a professional ROV was brought in as quickly as possible. That is, an underwater robot to carry out a search in the bottom area. Once the robot found the target, the divers would then implement the recovery. From the night of the 15th to the night of the 19th, for 4 whole days, Dong Sir, Han Ting, and others took turns conducting deep water search dives. However, this type of diving consumes a great deal of physical energy and time, considering the long decompression process. The number of dives possible each day was actually very limited. Even so, they searched all possible areas above 90 meters, but they still could not find the missing diver. By this time, everyone knew in their hearts that the hope of her being alive was extremely slim. On the night of the 19th, the underwater robot was deployed immediately upon arrival. During the 3rd dive, after searching along the slope to 141 meters, the robot found the body of the missing diver. However, confirming the location was only the first step. The subsequent recovery operation was even more difficult, because for every 10 meters of depth, the atmospheric pressure increases by 1. At a depth of 141 meters, there are about 15 atmospheres of pressure. If the body were recovered hastily, it would rapidly expand several times over during the process, potentially causing it to rupture. So Han Ting suggested he go down personally to perform a piercing procedure on the body. This would allow the body to slowly release gases during the ascent, maintaining the diver's integrity and dignity as much as possible. After repeated simulations by the team and manufacturers, the recovery plan was finally finalized. The first step was for the robot to lift the victim and hover at a depth of about 100 meters. Then Han Ting would dive to the corresponding depth to operate. The operation officially began on November 21st. Under conditions of very low underwater visibility, Han Ting successfully dove to 105 meters. After securing the body to the main rope, he performed a 5-needle piercing on the body. The entire recovery process lasted 230 minutes, of which decompression time accounted for over 80%. It wasn't until around 11:30 p.m. that the body was finally brought ashore. However, why did a recreational dive to see jellyfish end in a loss of life? It wasn't until they saw the victim's computer data that the rescuers had a clear answer. It turned out that in just 20 minutes, the victim had already reached a fatal depth of 140 meters. According to the analysis report released afterward by Aguay and Louis, the process of this accident can be divided into 4 stages. The first stage was the first 3 minutes of the dive. The diver had reached 30 meters underwater normally. Considering the 3 mm wetsuit, a full 12-liter tank, and 4 kilograms of weight worn by the victim, this rate of descent indicated the diver could still maintain a certain level of neutral buoyancy. The second stage was from the 3rd to the 7th minute. The dive computer showed she reached 34.2 meters at 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Then, until 6 minutes and 40 seconds, the victim dropped from 34 meters to 37 meters. In these short 3 minutes and 20 seconds, although the depth change was only 3 meters, it was the most critical period of this accident, because based on the timing analysis, this was exactly when the other team members began their return ascent. Perhaps the victim deviated from her buddy to admire the jellyfish and dove alone. Or perhaps she failed to keep up with the team due to poor visibility, and thus mistakenly entered the North Branch Cave. But according to standard diver protocols, if a diver becomes separated from their companion during a dive, they should search in place for 1 minute. If unsuccessful, they should ascend directly to the surface. However, the victim's search time lasted over 3 minutes, and during this period, she began to sink slowly, meaning she might have already lost neutral buoyancy, and was unable to complete the ascent autonomously. This was because, as depth increases, the volume of the wetsuit is compressed, leading to a decrease in buoyancy. Of course, another possibility is nitrogen narcosis. Although about 79% of the air we breathe is nitrogen, only a tiny amount of nitrogen dissolves in the blood under normal pressure. In the high water pressure of deep water, large amounts of nitrogen dissolve into the body, producing an effect similar to being drunk. This is the so-called martini effect. Generally speaking, for every 6 meters dived beyond 30 meters, it is equivalent to drinking 1 martini. Furthermore, the report pointed out, low water temperatures and poor visibility near the number 2 sinkhole, combined with the psychological panic of being separated from the team, would exacerbate the diver's nitrogen narcosis reaction. Secondly, it was discovered afterward that her BC showed no signs of inflation, indicating she forgot to use the BC and had been relying on kicking to maintain balance. Physical exertion accelerates the accumulation of carbon dioxide, further worsening the gas narcosis effect. Finally, after 7 minutes, everything began to spiral out of control. At 7 minutes, the victim's depth was 40 meters, but by the 8th minute, she had reached 60 meters. Descending 20 meters in 1 minute indicated her nitrogen narcosis was already very severe. Although there was still gas in the cylinder, she might have completely lost her sense of direction and motor skills. Her body was basically in a free fall. She reached 70 meters by the 9th minute. Then, until the 12th minute, there was a very slight ascent between 70 and 76.5 meters. It might have been her last trace of gas and consciousness attempting a final struggle. Or she might have hit the rock wall, causing a temporary blockage. After 12 minutes was the final fatal stage. From the 12th to the 16th minute, the diver descended 10 meters in 4 minutes. But from the 13th to the 16th minute, she only descended 2.5 meters in 3 minutes. There are 2 possibilities here. First, she was still alive, but her consciousness was extremely weak and her gas was almost exhausted. Her body could only slide down the rock wall powerlessly. Second, the diver had already perished, and the body began to sink along the rock wall. By the 17th minute, she reached 91 meters. The falling speed accelerated again afterward. 126 meters at 18 minutes, 140 meters at 20 minutes. Until the 22nd minute, the figure finally settled at 141 meters.